They thought slapping on fake badges and waving a phony warrant would be enough to scare me. 5 men dressed like cops, acting like they owned the place, banging on my door as if I'd fold under pressure. But I don't scare easy, not when I can spot a fraud from a mile away. And when you try to raid my land under false authority, you've already lost. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. I moved into Brookfield Ranch to get away from noise, politics, and power games. My property sat just outside city limits, private, quiet, and with enough space to breathe. It was supposed to be my retirement refuge, but HOAs don't respect lines on maps. They expand like weeds, deciding they've got jurisdiction where they don't. The trouble started 6 months earlier when the HOA's vice president, Lydia Carver, showed up at my gate in a navy blue blazer and heels that didn't belong on gravel. She was the type who never blinked when she lied. Lydia was running a behind-the-scenes campaign to take over the HOA presidency. She'd been building a reputation as the tough enforcer, cracking down on fines, threatening foreclosures, and pushing through beautification projects. Everyone in the neighborhood whispered about her. She needed a showcase property, my property, for her next PR stunt. According to the plan she bragged about at an HOA meeting that someone sent me a recording of, she wanted to integrate the last few unincorporated parcels into the HOA. The problem? My land wasn't part of her playground. I owned it outright. The HOA had no jurisdiction here. Lydia started small, courtesy notices for non-existent code violations, fines for grass length, noise, and unpermitted structures. She even sent a letter saying my front fence was obstructing common access, when the fence was on my survey line and had been there since before the HOA even existed. I confronted her at a board meeting. "You know you're trespassing over the line here," I said. "This isn't HOA land." Her smile was thin and cold. "Everything changes, Mr. Davis. We're moving forward with community integration. You can either be part of it or be a problem." "A problem?" I asked. "I'm not even under your jurisdiction. You're under mine now," she replied, "and when I'm president, you'll regret dragging your feet." That was the last civil conversation we had. After that, the fines came weekly. Letters, threats of liens, fake citations, even a summons signed by some HOA security committee she'd invented. All for show, to intimidate me. Then, just after sunset that day, the pounding started. Not a polite knock, heavy fists and boots slamming against the wood, rattling the frame. I grabbed the pistol I keep holstered inside my foyer and peered through the blinds. 5 men in black tactical vests stood on my porch, each one with a patch that read HOA Cop. Their badges gleamed under the porch light, but the shine didn't hide the lies. The lead man barked, "Open up. This is a compliance raid. You're in violation of HOA codes." Compliance raid? That was laughable. HOAs can fine you. They can take you to civil court. But a raid? That crosses into impersonating law enforcement, a felony under 18 U.S. Code 912, and every one of them was dressed to intimidate. I cracked the door just enough to let them hear me. "You boys are trespassing. HOA rules don't reach out here, and you damn sure don't have police authority." One of them shoved a piece of paper toward the gap. It looked like a warrant. Bold letters, a stamp, even signatures, but the second I scanned it, I caught the mistakes. No judge's name, no docket number, just HOA letterhead and empty threats. "You refuse to cooperate?" the leader sneered. "That makes this escalation. Step aside or we'll make you." I couldn't help but laugh, the kind of laugh that rattles a man who's trying to act tough. "You're 5 guys playing dress up. I've dealt with worse in training exercises." Their eyes narrowed. They didn't know yet. Didn't know I'd served years in Delta Force. Didn't know intimidation tactics were wasted on me. Didn't know the more they pushed, the more they were digging their own graves in court. I shut the door, locked it, and walked straight to my desk. Every second of their nonsense was captured on my security cameras, and when I hit upload, that footage was in the hands of the sheriff's office within minutes. They kept pounding until the house itself felt like it was under siege. The door vibrated with every strike, the glass in the sidelights chiming like a bell. I waited until the third slam, long, violent, then cracked the door open just enough to look out. "Last chance," their leader barked, shoving the paper at me again. "Step aside." I opened the door wider. "Leave," I said, voice low. "Now." One of them lunged forward, grabbed my shirt, and yanked me out onto the porch. My back hit the boards, his knee pinning my shoulder. The leader leaned in, baton tapping like he was rehearsing intimidation. "You refuse to cooperate," he sneered. "That makes this escalation." That was the trigger. No more games. My hand found the pistol at my hip. I rolled, kicked the man off balance, and came up steady. The leader froze a second too long. I shot him in the shoulder. He dropped with a howl, clutching the wound. The second man charged, wild and reckless, and I shot him in the chest. He spun and crashed onto the gravel. The remaining 3 came at once. The first swung a baton. I redirected it, twisted his wrist, and sent him stumbling. The second tried to spear tackle me. I caught him in a clinch, elbowed his sternum, and tossed him over the porch rail. He crumpled on the steps. The last came from my flank, shoulder lowered. I underhooked, dropped my hips, and rolled him onto the boards, pinning him with my knee across his chest until the fight left his body. By the time the sheriff's SUV spun into the drive, 3 men were groaning on the lawn and 2 were unconscious on the gravel. Deputies poured out, weapons visible, commands sharp. Medics arrived seconds later. Within minutes, the scene was a machine of cuffs and questions and professional distance. The aftermath was brutal for them. The leader needed surgery to repair a torn artery and muscle damage. The second man had a gunshot through his thigh, cleaned and debrided. One had a shattered nose, another a fractured forearm, and the third a dislocated shoulder that doctors popped back into place. Their attempt at intimidation had ended in bandages and charges. And I knew exactly who had set this circus in motion. Lydia Carver, the HOA's vice president. Now her fingerprints were all over this fake cop stunt. And with 5 men in custody, bleeding and broken, the trail was about to lead straight back to her. I knew the real battle was about to begin inside the sheriff's office. 2 deputies escorted me downtown within the hour. Standard procedure, they said. Anytime shots were fired, statements had to be taken. I didn't argue. I'd trained for interrogation rooms years ago, and this one was no different. Gray walls, a metal table, 2 chairs, and the hum of a flickering light above. The lead investigator, Detective Harris, set a recorder on the table and leaned forward. Let's start from the beginning. Who were those men, and why were they at your door? I folded my arms. They called themselves HOA cops, wore vests, badges, carried batons. One even had a fake warrant. They demanded entry. I refused. They escalated. I defended myself. Harris raised an eyebrow. Defended yourself with deadly force. That's right, I said. 2 shots, both justified. Every second is on my security cameras. You'll see them shove me, you'll see the baton come down, and you'll see why I had no choice. Another detective flipped open a folder. We've already run the gear they carried. None of it's sanctioned. It's costume-grade junk dressed up to look official. They're being charged with impersonating officers, aggravated assault, attempted home invasion, and conspiracy. I let that sink in before leaning forward. And you'll find out they didn't come up with this themselves. Lydia Carver, HOA vice president. She sent them. She's been gunning for my house for months. Wanted it for leverage in her campaign to oust the current president. This was her power play. The detectives exchanged a look. Harris asked quietly, "How do you know all this?" That was when I gave them the piece they didn't expect. Because I know her tactics. I've seen intimidation before, and I know how to read it. I served over a decade in Delta Force. Afghanistan, Iraq, the Horn of Africa, you name it. I've dealt with warlords who tried the same stunt just with real uniforms. The silence in the room was heavy. Then Harris clicked the recorder off. "All right," he said finally, voice steady. "We'll follow the trail to Carver. But one thing's clear already. You were within your rights. Texas Penal Code, Section 9.32. Castle Doctrine. You defended yourself lawfully inside your own home's curtilage." I nodded once. "Good. Then let's finish this." Because I knew when those 5 men woke up in their hospital beds, they'd start talking, and every word would drag Lydia Carver down with them. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. It didn't take long for the walls to close in on Lydia Carver. By the time the 5 so-called HOA cops were stitched, casted, and cleared for questioning, they were already singing like canaries. Each of them admitted Lydia was the one who'd organized the enforcement squad. She'd promised them cash, HOA contracts, even political protection once she became president. The sheriff's office wasted no time stacking charges. For the 5 fake cops, the list read like a career-ending rap sheet. Criminal trespass, Texas Penal Code 30.05 for storming my property. Impersonating a peace officer, Texas Penal Code 37.12, a felony that carried up to 10 years. Conspiracy to commit extortion, since their goal was to force me out of my home under threat. Their punishments matched the severity. The leader, the one I shot through the shoulder, took the harshest fall, 15 years in prison plus restitution. The man shot through the thigh got 12 years. The 3 others tried to paint themselves as hired help, but the judge wasn't buying it. Each of them received 8-year sentences and fines. And their hospital stays? Brutal. The leader required vascular surgery and spent 9 days recovering before being hauled to county jail in shackles. The second spent 5 days in care and needed rehab for months. The others rotated between jail and medical wards. But the real storm hit Lydia. When investigators pulled her phone records, the case became bulletproof. Screenshots showed her bragging in private messages, "Once he's out of the way, the house is mine." President Carver has a nice ring to it. Bank statements tied her directly to the payouts promised to the men, and neighbors came forward with sworn testimony that she'd threatened fines, liens, even foreclosure on families who challenged her authority. Her charges were devastating: conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, solicitation of criminal impersonation, attempted extortion, abuse of fiduciary duty under state HOA law. When the gavel dropped, Lydia Carver wasn't walking out free. She was sentenced to 22 years in state prison, fined over $250,000 in restitution, and permanently barred from holding any leadership position in a homeowners association again. As for me, the county ruled my actions fully justified under Texas Stand Your Ground law. I wasn't charged with a single crime. Instead, I filed a civil suit against both Lydia and the HOA. The jury awarded me $300,000 in damages, enough to cover my legal bills, repair costs, and a tidy sum in punitive damages for the harassment campaign. The HOA itself collapsed within months, bankrupt and disgraced. Brookside Estates was forced under state receivership, stripped of the crooked leadership that had allowed Lydia to thrive. In the end, the fake cops went to prison, Lydia went down in flames, and the community finally learned the truth. When you try to turn a neighborhood into a dictatorship, you don't just lose elections, you lose everything.